Hi everybody, so today I'm going to be talking about the parts of a bone, okay? So we're going to start with this bone right here, and this is the femur, this is your thigh bone, and I'm going to try to draw this on my board right now, so just give you a better idea of what we're looking at here. It looks something like this. So if I were to draw this, I'm actually going to draw it going the opposite way. So let's go like this, and then I'm going to go like this, and then I'm going to have this portion here. I'm not going to draw this that long because I really don't need to, but here's the thing about this. This is actually the longest bone in your body, so I'm just not drawing it that way. So we have our femur here, our bone, right? So when it comes to bone, there's a few different things we're going to look at first. Surrounding the bone, we're going to have a covering. And this covering is kind of like the smooth part of the bone. And I'm just going to go like this. All right, and this will be all around the bone. Now, it's actually right on the bone. Okay, so I know I'm making it look like it's not exactly touching the bone, but it does. Okay, and we're going to call this outer part, this covering is going to be called our periosteum. Peri means around, and of course osteum means bone. So there's the first part of this. Okay, and like I said, we're going to call this the periosteum. And then on the inside of my bone, I am going to have a covering that's on the inside too. So let's do this one in let's use this purplish color thing. And then we're going to have a covering on the inside, right? And this is going to be called endosteum. So it's going to go like this around the inside of my bone. All right? So it's going to look something like that, okay? Now, so that's my endosteum. So this covers the outside of the bone. This is going to cover on the inside of the bone. Now, if we look at the bone, we have the upper part, right, which is going to be this part that's up here, and then I have this part that's down here, and we're going to call this part the epiphysis. So that's my epiphysis, and this would be my epiphysis down here. Okay, there's my epiphysis right there. Let's use that. Let's go in a little bit darker color. All right, and then if I look at this part in here, the shaft part, this is going to be my diaphysis. So this is going to be basically the shaft part of the bone that we see in here. Now, there can be two types of bones that are going to be inside of my bone, okay? The first one is what we're going to call spongy bone. And in spongy bone, as you notice, these lines are kind of just going in a haphazard pattern. And usually spongy bone is going to be found in the epiphysis. Okay, so this is my spongy bone right here. Okay, and where you see these lines, the way the bone's laid down, it's actually thin and narrow, little strands of bone. We call this trabeculae. Okay, so that's going to be like these little strands that you see in here. Okay, oh, by the way, and the reason you have that is there's a few reasons. The first one is it makes the bone lighter. If our bone was all compact bone, then what would happen is our bone would actually be too heavy for us to move. The second thing is, if you notice how these are in different patterns, that's so they can handle stress from different areas coming in different directions, right? So that's why you have spongy bone. Now, between the spongy bone, we're going to have our bone marrow. And if you recall, our bone marrow is basically responsible for making blood. And the thing about the bone marrow is, if you ever see a dog eat a bone, usually what they're doing is they're breaking the bone down so that they could get to the bone marrow, because this part, I guess, tastes pretty good to a dog. All right, so if we just go like this, this is all my bone marrow that's going to be in here. Okay, so now, on the other parts of bone that's on here, like where you see these black lines in here, this part in here, let's actually do it here. I'm gonna go like this, and we're gonna make this part here. I'm gonna blow this up, but this is going to be my compact bone. So really quick, so my periosteum would actually be on the outside of this compact bone. Okay, if I go over here and do it like this, all right, this would be my compact bone here. And this is more of, when you think of bone, this is more about what you're thinking of. All right, and then we're gonna have this come out here, and then what I'm going to do is go like this, and this is going to be my end ostium once again. So this is my end ostium right here. This part here is going to be compact bone. We're going to talk about compact bone more right now, but really quick, and then of course in the center of this, I am going to have my bone marrow in here, right? So that's going to be my bone marrow. And once again, what do we say about bone marrow? Bone marrow is going to be responsible for making blood. It's actually going to make stem cells that go on to become blood. So it makes blood, okay? So now, that's that for that there, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of this compact bone and I'm going to pretend like I pull this piece out and then I'm going to turn it towards you. So I'm going to pretend like I took this little piece out and turned it towards you. And then what we'll do is we'll take a look at what this looks like. So let's go ahead and erase this real quick. And in the center of my compact bone, we are going to have something called a central canal. So I'm going to have a central canal. Okay, and on the central canal, we're going to have arteries. So this would be an artery. We're going to have veins. This would be my vein. Okay, there's my vein. And then let's put in a nerve. So I'm going to put an N for nerve. Okay, and that's what's going to be in my central canal. So if we look at the central canal, it's going to look something like this here, okay? So that's what my central canal is going to look like. Like I said, we have an artery, a vein, and a nerve. Now coming off my central canal, well first, before we get to that, you actually have three types of bones. You have something called an osteoblast. An osteoblast make bones. This is going to make bone. Right? Then we're going to have something called an osteocyte. An osteocyte is basically an osteoblast that's no longer, or it's an inactive osteoblast. Okay? And then we're going to have osteoclast. Osteoclasts are going to break down bones when you need things such as calcium or for bone remodeling. So these are going to break down bone, okay? So there's our three types: osteoblast, osteocyte, and osteoclast. So I'm going to erase this real quick because we're going to talk about osteoblast right now, and then we'll talk about osteocytes. So here's what's going to happen. Is as bone is formed, what's going to happen is my osteoblast is going to form the bone, and it's basically eventually going to surround itself in bone. It's going to surround itself, and it's going to make a little pocket called the lacunae. So anyways, look, we're going to draw this right now, okay? And then this is going to be the lacunae right there, and this is going to be my osteocyte inside of here. Okay, so what's going to happen is my osteocyte's actually going to have a cytoplasmic extension that can communicate or get nutrition from the artery, the vein, and the nerve. So it can get nutrition from the artery, get rid of waste through the vein, and have nerve flow through the nerve, okay? So that's what's going to happen here. So what I'm going to do is we'll call this here lacunae. Okay, that's the little pocket that this is in. This here is going to be my osteocyte. Okay, and again, an osteocyte is just an inactive osteoblast. So that's what that's going to be. I'm going to draw another part here. Okay, and then let's draw another one here. Okay, and then now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make lines, because if you see these on a picture, they actually just look like lines. So let's go like this. All right, and then we're going to go like this. And then we'll go like this, and it's going to look like this, okay? So these would all be lacunae here, right? And then I'm going to have my osteocytes inside of these. So there's my osteocyte with a cytoplasmic extension. I'd have that here. I'm not going to draw the cytoplasmic extension, but it would still just continue down in there. Let's go like this, okay? All right, so now, here's the thing. If you notice, we have this tube-like structure here. This tube-like structure is going to be called a canaliculi. And what canal liculi do is they help the osteocyte communicate with the central canal. So it's like a little, it'd be like a tunnel that's on there, okay? It's like a little tunnel. It's going to contain the osteocytic or the cytoplasmic extension there, okay? So we have that. Now, like we said, as we're forming bone, or as bone is being formed, it's actually laying bone around itself. So we're going to have this area in here, right? And this would actually be the bone that's forming. Okay, so that's going to be my bone that's all forming in there. All right, so this gives you an idea. So where you see this bone that's forming now between this canal liculi, this is going to be called lamellae. All right, so that's the bone that's forming there. So I'm going to go like this, and then this is going to be my lamellae. Okay, so now here, this whole thing here now, we are going to call this an osteon. Okay, it's also known as the Hervasian system, but we're just going to call it a osteon. This is also known as the Hervasian canal, but we're just going to call it central canal. All right, so there's one osteon. So if I were to take this now and go a little bit smaller, I'm going to just draw, oh wait, there's one, well, if I were to take this and just go a little bit smaller, the way this would look is you got a whole bunch of these together to form your bone. Okay, and I'm kind of making it look like there's a pattern here. There's really not. But anyways, that's the way it's going to look. Then what's going to happen is surrounding all this, you're actually going to get more lamellae going around this, and we're going to call this circumferential lamellae. That's going to surround this. So these would all be my osteons, right? These are all osteons you see here. And then going around this, we have circumferential lamellae. Okay, and that's basically going to be what makes up my compact bone, right? So this is the osteon. I get a whole bunch of osteons together, and then I have, and then by the way, with the little dots on, you can even say those are the central canals because they're all going to have central canals. Okay, and that's what that's going to look at like. Now, remember, you're looking at a cross section here. You have this going all up and down your bones. So let's take a look at this now. If we were to look at it from the side. And what it's going to look like is like this. Let's say this is my central canal. Now the central canal is not just a flat thing, but let's say this is my central canal right there. And what it's going to do, so I'd have an osteon going around this, right? These are actually going to communicate with each other. All right, and then here's another central canal, right? And then and then I could have this, oh, it looks like a big H. I could have this actually going on to another central canal, right? So this whole thing is going to communicate with each other. And we call these here perforating canals. All right, so the perforating canals are basically going to connect our central canals. So if you recall, we said that inside the central canal, we're going to have arteries and veins and things such as that, right? So I'm just going to draw arteries. So here's my artery inside my central canal. This would come down through the central canal, right? And then what it's going to do is it can also cut over to this way over in here, right? So here's my artery coming down. And then it can cut to over here and communicate with this one. Here's another artery coming down. Then this one could go that way, but it's also going to continue throughout the bone. Okay, so, and again, this is going to go for the nerves, and it's also going to go for the veins that are in there too, right? So we're going to call these perforating canals. So again, this whole thing is called the Hervasian system, right? Or it's an osteon, is what I just got done drawing a few minutes ago. Anyways, that's it for the bone, and thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and subscribe button, and we will catch you next time. Thanks again.